Everyone. Today, we are going to dive into the experience of being an only child, the good, the bad, and the surprising. Growing up as a single child in China gave me a pretty unique perspective. Back then, with the one child policy in place, most kids around me were also the only child in their families. It was almost like we're part of a single child club. So I've got a few insights on what it's like and how it shapes you, whether you're in China or anywhere else. Alright, let's start with one of the biggest perks, resources. When you are an only child, the family's finances, attention, and time are all yours. For me, this meant my parents could afford things like violin lessons from the age of 5 with private tutorials every week. If I had siblings, the level of focus would have been a stretch financially. And this wasn't just about hobbies, it meant better schooling and the possibility of studying abroad, which opened up so many doors, as you can see in my case. And I'm not alone in this. Globally, only children often get the chance to explore more interest because they don't have to share their parents' resources. So this is a definite perk. More opportunity, more exploration, and a bit of head start in life. Another big one is the close relationship you build with your parents. As a single child, I always knew that I could count on my parents. It's a deep bond, almost like a strong friendship, where we trust each other fully. If I had siblings, maybe I have to think twice before asking for support or advice, or consider my parents' resources as well. But as the only child, there's a level of trust and support that's pretty unique. But, of course, it's not all sunshine and roses. One of the downsides is that independence can come a bit later in life. Growing up, I leaned on my parents for a lot, which can make becoming independent feel like a bigger leap when you are older. When I moved to the UK, I had to learn to figure things out, which was a bit of shock at first. I had to figure out bills, cooking, and handling problems solo, which is definitely easier if you had practice early on. In contrast, my parents, who have siblings, became independent at a much earlier age than I did, partly because they learned from each other. So, for all the single children out there, just a heads up, independence might be a steeper learning curve, but you will get there. Then there's the emotional side. Having siblings means dealing with family conflicts from a young age. You are forced to learn compromise, patience, and empathy because you've got a built-in teammate or rival, depending on the day. For single children, this can be a little slower to develop. Sure, we play with friends at school, but we don't always get that daily hands-on practice in resolving emotional ups and downs within the family. And there's the other layer of family dynamics, especially when it comes to gender expectations. In China, a lot of single boys were raised as little emperors. The family is so focused, often with fewer responsibilities. Meanwhile, many single daughters were raised with high expectations, excelling academically, being self sufficient, and eventually balancing careers and family life. For women, this can be a double-edged sword. You grow up ambitious and driven, but you also face more workplace discrimination when it comes to starting a family. It can lead to a burnout, as many of these women take on more responsibilities in marriage, from career pressures to family finances, because they grew up learning to carry it all. So, gender expectations play a big role in shaping the single child experience. Now, let's talk about a common myth. People often assume that single child are lonelier, but I don't think so. I don't think that's always true. In a society where most kids around you are single children, you naturally seek friendship outside the family, which can make you more outgoing. When everyone is the only child, socializing becomes more important, and families are often more involved in community events. I see loneliness as a modern issue that impacts every family, not just single children. Growing up as the only child in a community where this was the norm means we all made efforts to build strong friendships. So, if you're an only child or are raising one, don't worry too much about the loneliness. It's more about the environment than the family size. So there you have it, the pros and cons of being a single child. You get a lot of focus, trust, and opportunity, but it can also mean a later start with independence and a different approach to emotional intelligence. Family dynamics and cultural expectations play a big role too, especially regarding gender roles. And that's something to consider if you are thinking about raising an only child. Ultimately, whether you are one of the many siblings or the only child, every family setup comes with its own lessons. Being an only child taught me to value friendships, embrace opportunities, and learn independence at my own pace. At the end of the day, it's all about making the most of your unique experience and creating your own path. Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below if you can relate, whether you are an only child or from a big family. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Bye, see you next week.